to join me. And then Hashem discuss of our tefillah and the Teshuva that will flow in his earth will flow from tonight. There will be a discuss in his merit. Together. המנצח מזמור לדוד, לך אדוני ביום צרה, ישגבך השם אלוהי יעקב, ישלח עזרך מקודש, ומציון יסעדך. יזכר כל מנכסיך, יובסך ידש נסלה. ייתן לך כלבביך, וכל עצתך ימלא. רמה בישועתך בשם אלוהינו נגאל, ימלא אדוני כל משאלתך. אתה ידעתי כי הושיע אדוני משיחה, יענהו משמי קדשו, בקרוס ישע ימינו. אלה ברך ואלה בסוסים, ואנחנו בשם אדוני אלוהינו נזכיר. הימה קראו ונפלו, ואנחנו קמנו ונסעדנו. אדוני הושיע, מלך יעננו, יום קראנו. ששוי מההרים, ויעי יבוא עזרי. אדוני עושי שמיים וארץ. ימות רגליך ינום שומריך. הנה לא ינום ולא יישן שומר ישראל. אדוני שומריך, אדוני צילך ידך. יום השמש לא יככה, וירח בלילה. אדוני ישמרך מקרא, ישמר את נפשך. אדוני ישמר את לבבך, ואתה בידך. למה תקראתי אדוני. תחיינו אוזנך קשבות לכל תחנונות. אדוני ציפויה, אדוני מי יעמוד. כי מחסתך למען תתערף. תביסי אדוני כי תשא נפשי, ולדבריו פעלתי. נפשי אדוני משוררים בבוקר, שומרים בבוקר. ישראל על אדוני כברך חסד, והווה מלכותו. בוא יפרח ישראל, Tefillah reminds us, among many other things, our utter dependence on the Bergenfield. El is every month is an opportunity, but El is a particular opportunity to repair and refresh and move forward and deepen our relationship with the Bergenfield. And it's exciting to have with us a very old friend this evening to really help, as I was saying before, to open our communal avodah of El, our communal focus on the opportunities that El provides. Judah, Mischel, longer perhaps than we'll talk about right now. But back to Maitland's, back to Washington Heights, and Baruch time together. And Baruch Hashem of Judah is a beacon and a lighthouse for many people in terms of finding direction and figuring out how to take where we're at and grow forward. And Judah came out recently with a sefer of a diary of Teshuva thoughts. The chance to begin to take a look. Two things that caught my eye in particular. One is a comment of Cook, which I think is rooted in a comment of the Ramchal to the Parak Mesilas Yesharim, that one always needs to, a growing Jew needs to be looking in two directions. A growing Jew needs to be looking at where he wants to be and what I want to be, and at the same time looking also where I am now. I'm figuring out how to connect those dots. Life as it ought to be, and life as it is right now. And those two dimensions, those two perspectives together. We also quoted a comment from
Ay, ay, ay.
I want to thank Eric Teller and Sammy Moore and Barry Finkelstein for putting this together on the shul side, and a number of friends of the shul, members and friends of the shul who sponsored this evening. I want to thank the anonymous sponsor, whoever he or she or they are. And we thank the Mitnicks, Jessica and Mikey Mitnick, who are sponsoring the evening Mishal and Judah and Parrots. We thank Suzanne and Avi Stoka, who are sponsoring in honor of Judah. And we thank Kanina and Jason Suss and Jerry and Fran Weinberg. And without further ado, of Judah. Like that.
Oh, I'm saying, hi, everybody, you're so. What's that? Here. It doesn't do it. I'm saying, if I'm up here, I'm not supposed to know. All the clock on the shender does is that you're like, what is this? Okay, hi, everybody. All right. Okay. Hi, everyone. Go to show. This is something. This is a real thing. I feel very comfortable here. Even I was an associate member of the Early Many Idiots Club that Shimmy founded about 25 years ago. Maybe you founded it before, okay? 30. So that's how much of an idiot I was. So I didn't even know that. But a lot of very, very special times in the shul, and it's very special to come back, be able to spend a little time here together. And I thank you everybody for coming. It's Wednesday night, 9 o'clock on Wednesday night. I guess this is what happens in a place where people are serious about Yiddishkeit. So thank you to the Susses for driving this, and to everybody for the great privilege to be here. Cong mentioned that this whole thing is about celebrating and kind of leaning into the Baderech pathway. About living life in process, kind of enjoying the road and the ride as it goes, and as we develop and as we grow along this. First of all, can I just, before I do this, I give a schlep to come up here. It's amazing seeing so many friends from so many different stages and times of life. Like this is very special. I would much prefer sit around at the table and catch up. Like I'm gonna do this. I mean, it's a real thing. I'm gonna do it. I wore a jacket. But let's be honest. For the most of us here, I don't know. It'd be very nice to interact with it, catch up. So many different times and places that we know each other from, or that hopefully we might know each other from, and very, very special. A real suicide. This whole world is one big journey. That's the way Chazal framed this whole thing. That Teshuva is a I don't know it was in my life before I was even born. True story. But I should be up here and give you a drasha. This whole world is just one story. Starts with Bereshis bara Elokim. Hashem starts telling a story of creation, story of development, cultivating life, Adam and Chava, and then their kids, and then generations, and then the world is destroyed, and the world is rebuilt, and the world is established again, and the Avos and the Imahos. The reason why Kadosh Baruch Hu tells the story of the world as a story is to awaken us the most important truth, that this whole thing is in development. The whole reality, the existence of our world is in development. It's just a story that's in process. The end hasn't been written. Every day is another page. Every part of our life is another chapter. There's twists, there's turns, there's ups and downs. We're this way, we're that way. There's mystery, there's surprise, there's tragedy, there's love, there's loss. It's all one big story. Mike and Nick and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago, how it's an amazing thing that every period of life, it's like another chapter. And you can kind of look back and say, wow, we had time together in that chapter, and that kind of led to the next story, and we're all in development. And what an unbelievable privilege it is to be able to share, to be able to just take a couple minutes and stop and say, thank you, Hashem, that we have the opportunity to just pause along the way. And at some point in all of our lives that are all kind of coming together tonight in Bergenfield, it's all b'hashgacha. And at least to stop for a second and say thank you, Hashem, that itself is meaningful. And it's Chodesh Elul. And that's another stop along the way of the continuous cycle of the year. Elul in Hasidic, on the Hasidic calendar, Elul is a very charged time. Elul is a very charged time. It's for a couple of hundred years been the tradition that during Elul, many are preparing for a journey, preparing for a derech, for a path to spend Rosh Hashanah among fraternity, with one's Rabbi, whether that's as an individual, as a family. Of Soloveitchik writes, and it mentions it a few times, how powerful it was during the month of El in Poland. Now, in Poland, we're from his vantage point, how they would add trains in the beginning of El. They already begin adding trains, public transportation, to bring Ger Chassidim to Gur Kalvari. Now the Ger Rebbe is in Muncie, making a wedding in Muncie, a granddaughter. But he said, like, to hear Hurei Teshuva, the thought of Teshuva, when the government would start creating the opportunity to move people to be able to spend Rosh Hashanah together, that to him as a young person was very inspiring. There was a great Yid named Rabbi Paritcher. Rabbi Paritcher was a Talmud of the Alter Rebbe. We play a little bit of a game here. Every time I plug the book, take a drink. Rabbi Paritcher was the what? I'm saying word, but everybody's hydro. Rabbi Paritcher was the Talmud of the Alter Rebbe. Now, Alter Rebbe, Baal Tanya, was in revealed Torah and concealed Torah of the greatest in his generation, the greatest of all generations. And he's realized that, like, there's so much that he wanted to share, and so much that he wanted to experience with people, but it just wasn't practical to hang out. It wasn't practical for every person to come in and to spend time and really share from his inner world and to hear everybody's things. So he said, here's what I'm going to do. He wrote a book. He wrote a book called Sefer HaTanya. And in Sefer HaTanya, he said, I'm putting myself into this, I'm breathing into this book for myself. And if you want to kind of like connect up, learn the Sefer. He was pushing merch. Read the Sefer. the bio and the link. So Rabbi Paritcher was a Talmud of the Alter Rebbe, and he was close to the Alter Rebbe. And he wasn't just someone who had a virtual relationship, but in time and in space, he had access to the Alter Rebbe, and he was close to it. He was called in those days, in the world of Mezrich, and in the world afterwards in Yadi, and in the students of the Alter Rebbe, he was known as like the one who really understood the Alter Rebbe. He was real, a person was double. And then when the Alter Rebbe left the world, Rabbi Paritcher attached himself to his son. And then a generation later, Rabbi Paritcher, as an elderly man, was connected to the grandson of the Alter Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek. And he was known as an Ernst Yid. He was a person who was serious. He was an intense Baal Avoda. There was no sticking around, didn't joking, didn't open up with stories and varts and jokes. He went straight to it. And he davened. He was known for his davening. When he davened, he would stand very clear. He would daven very, very strong for a very long time. He'd stand in one spot and not move a muscle for hours. It was a Baal Avoda. In Chabad Chassidus, when they say Reb Hillel, it's synonymous with Pnimis, in the inner world. Anyways, he had like a lot of idiosyncrasies and a lot of very specific things he did in his Amos. And he wanted very, very much to spend Yom Tov, because of Shabbos, preceding Rosh Hashanah, with his Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, really his Rebbe's grandson. So this elderly Jew, Rabbi Hillel Paritcher, wanted to spend Shabbos by the Tzemach Tzedek. The only thing was, it was already Tuesday, and in those days, it wasn't like call an Uber, it wasn't like this public transportation. You hop on a train, take the Delta shuttle, shouldn't say Delta, but you take the shuttle, and you get there, and you spend time with the Rebbe, and you get back, and it's easy access. He also had like certain things about travel, like he didn't travel in mixed company, and he had a thing like not to go on the highway, because the highway was built by Tsar Nikolai Yimach Shemo, who was a vicious person, and he just felt like he didn't want to go on the highway. He was also an older guy. At a certain point, you can kind of like dictate what you want to do. You're a Rabbi Paritcher. You don't want to go on the highway, don't go on the highway. But that was the thing. Bali Musar, we know about it. Mischel Salanter and others also had like a thing. They felt that like when railroads were built and when highways were built, they were built with such cruelty, using either slave labor, taking advantage of prisoners. There was built such suffering and human suffering. They felt like, how could I benefit in such a way? I mean, it was a very socially progressive way of seeing the world and spiritual sensitivity. Why would I, wear clothing that's produced in a shop that takes advantage of children? And how could I eat food that's not created in a sustainable environment, or an environment that's just in a way that's respectful to the world? The Rabbi Paritcher, whatever his reason was, didn't like to go on the highway. And it was already Tuesday night, and it was known that he wanted to go to the rabbis. There was a young Hasidic guy who happened to have a good carriage and a good horse, heard that Rabbi Hillel wanted to go, and he said, here's an opportunity to be Mashamesh to serve Talmud Chacham. So he goes to Rabbi Hillel and he says, it would be my schus, my pleasure to take you on the path, to take you Baderech, to go to visit Tzemach Tzedek Shabbos, to go spend Shabbos in Lubavitch. They were in Babroy. They're in Chaslavich. He wanted to get to Lubavitch. So he says, I'm happy to take you out. A good horse, a new stark horse, strong horse, and I have a good carriage. It's very comfortable. But I have just two conditions. The fellow said no. He said, first of all, we have to take the highway. Like I got in the carpool lane, easy path. Like it's not going to work. Side roads, it's just not going to work. I have this new carriage, good wheels. It'll be very fast. I know you don't like to go on the highway, but the only way to get to the Lubavitch on time for Shabbos is if we take the highway. The fellow said, okay. In the second, he said, the second is you can't schlep with the daven. Like I don't want to get in the way of your avodah, but if you want to get to the Rebbe, you want to get to the Tzemach Tzedek for Shabbos, we're going to have to move. It's just we have to move practically. It's a 3-day journey, and we're going to have to go. Bill thought and said, okay, I want to get to the Rebbe for Shabbos. Okay, fine. He said, great. Packed up the stuff, and they set out on their way. Sure enough, they take the highway, they're moving, and every good story includes a stop along at exit 130. A stop at a proper pundak. You know what I'm talking about. It's Cong. I got to wrap up because I got to hit exit 130 before I put the hot food away. The Satmer gas station, Exxon. I should get an door. I mean, I don't have to work. We got to talk this week. Put on my jacket or something. Exxon. Good story. They stop off at a pundak, at a kretschmer, at a little inn. a roadside inn. And at the roadside inn, he gets a good night's sleep in the morning. He gets up in the morning because it's Tiyul mode. We gotta hit the road early. He gets up, davens, sits at the breakfast. He's looking around for Mischel. Mischel's coming back from the mikveh. Okay. Yeah, he lays his towels till, he stands by the window, and he gets into the zone. He has a sitter, and he's just standing there by the window. An hour goes by, and there's like no movement. It's not going. They think to themselves, okay, we gotta hit the road. If you want to get there, just like practically, we have to hit the road. 2 hours go by, 3 hours go by. The middle powers are still there. He didn't even start Shemona Esrei. He starts the Shemona Esrei, and he's standing there, not flexible, not moving a muscle by the window. After an hour and a half Shemona Esrei, he starts taking off his tefillin. And this is like, okay, this is crazy. We got to get going already. Takes off his tefillin, and he takes out another bag of tefillin, Rabbi Thomas. So the specific guy says, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't get it. I mean, if you want to, like, we have to go. It's not going to make it. We're not going to make it to Shabbos. And now the Rebbe Tom is like, I don't want to be disrespectful. It's just practically not going to work. So Hillel says, okay, so we won't go to Tzemach Shabbos. So we won't go. He's like, I don't understand. You made a whole to-do for us to go. We hit the road. We're here. Why wouldn't we go? So Hillel looks at him and says, let me ask you a question. If you're going to you make a business deal, right? There's certain merchandise that you want to buy, and you have your eye on this product, and you get set on a journey on the path to go to Leipzig, to the fair. That was like where your big Yeriv took place. We're going to go to Leipzig to the fair. Because you know that there you're going to be able to buy that merchandise that you're going to go then make money from. You're going to go make business. And on the way to Leipzig, on the way to the fair, on the way to the great fair, you meet somebody along the way who has a couple boxes of that very merchandise. It's not sitting in Lakewood in some big Amazon warehouse. It's right there in front of your eyes. The guy's selling it at a better price than they would sell it in Leipzig. That's what you're looking for. So you buy the merchandise right there. Why do you have to go to Leipzig? Okay, here. Then what's the purpose of going to this tzaddik, of going to the Tzemach Tzedek? What's the purpose of this derech, of this journey? Our goal of going to Tzemach Tzedek, to the Rebbe for Shabbos, is to be inspired, is to draw some wind on our sails, to fill the tank with gas and ruchnis and avodas Hashem, that I should feel uplifted, to help my focus and my sincerity in davening, that I should be able to go into the high holidays with a little bit of an uplift, with something to hold on to. Except we ended up over here, and I feel a good flow in my davening. I had a good davening this morning. I was in a good zone. Why should I hustle it up here, cut it short, in order to go there? I have it here. Why do I need to go there? What Bill Paracher was saying is, yeah, we had a destination, what we thought a place we were supposed to go, that we were intended to go, that if we go there, it's going to be good. And there I'll be able to tap into something important and holy and meaningful and spiritual and great because whatever, we have a system, we have a process, and it makes sense. Like it's good. It was a good idea. You go there and you go to the shir and you get inspired. You go to the kumzit, you get inspired. You go to the whatever, and that makes sense. It's good. But why should I go there if I'm feeling good right now? In road trip terms, it's called being open to the road. It's being open to the road. Everyone knows a good road trip includes number one, good chevron. You need to have a good crew in the car. Number two, when you need a good road trip, good snacks. Very important. There you gotta have good beverage. And number three, you gotta have good tunes. You gotta have good. There needs to be there has to be good soundtrack. You know, like a good playlist, something. And then you hit the road. And then you hit the road. And you just try it's the same notion. Our life is just an entire depth. The story of our life begins even before we're born, and it continues after we die. And we're here for a certain amount of time, hopefully long, healthy, many long, good years. But it's one part of the story, it's one chapter. And living in process means being open. The first commentary on the Torah, the original commentary on Torah Kedosha, is the same generation as Gemara. It's Medrash Rabbi, the first commentary of Torah, authored by the same Tanaim who are talking in the Mishnah. The same I was like guys, the same tzaddikim, the same Tanaim who are authoring, who are teaching us in Mishnah and Gemara and Torah Shabbal Peh are the same ones who are in Medrash. Rav Shimon Zatzal pointed out that the most important midah in Torah is hidden, is alluded to in the beginning of that commentary. The first word of Medrash Rabbah is Pasach. Pasach le Rishaya. Rishaya opened things up. He opened up. His opening thought wasn't that he began a conversation. The Gemara tells us, Shimon Bar Yochai is sitting with the students and he talking to them, and they asked him a question about Mordechai, Esther, and Haman. And Shimon Bar Yochai says, what do you say? It's preceded by Pasach le Parsha Samehacha. He opened up the conversation in the following way. And the Gemara goes through all these different teachers of Torah. Pasach le Parsha Samehacha. They opened up the discussion of Torah in the following way. Rav Steinman said the most important trait in growth, in Yiddishkeit, in learning, in Avodas Hashem, is to be open. It's to be open. To be open to the road. I think I'm heading this way, and then I plan on going there, and there I'm going to have my Hatzlacha. So in Leipzig, I'll do this deal, I'll have that, I'll make these following steps, I'll put in the Hishtadlus here, and I'll have the result there. Like the Torah tells us, like the Mishnah tells us, if you invest, you gata, if you put work in, matzata, and you find it, come and believe. And invest ourselves in whatever discipline, whether it be studying, whether it be parnasa, whether it be in some relationship, whether it be in some spiritual pursuit. You gata, you put effort in, matzata, and you get some result, come and believe it. The only thing is, Yegia and Metzia are two separate categories in Jewish law. Yegia means work, effort. It means that I'm digging in a certain way. Right? I have a very specific, deliberate, planned, scripted way of investing. And my intention is that investment, A, is going to lead to B. And then it's going to lead to C and D. And there's a certain predictability in it. There's something reliable. That's Yegia. Metzia is the opposite area of a category in Jerusalem. Like we learned, Elu Metzia. So a person's going along the way, you're traveling on the road, you're walking down the block, and you find something there you didn't expect. Oh, it's a good Metzia, meaning it's a good deal. That was unexpected, it's surprising. I found here, like, oh, I got something good here. Which is specifically deliberately not connected to the investment. It's something I found, something that landed on my lap. Because I was open. What does it mean that the Mishnah tells us, Pirkei Avos, that Jewish ethics means that if I invest, I'll come out with Metzia. Telling us, like, just know that there's a process, and we can't necessarily connect the dots in that process. Invest here, do our best. We are here to learn, try to help people, try to be a good person, pay it into the ecosystem of our community, of our society, of the universe, whatever it is. That the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Eibishter, God, the higher power, whatever kind of, takes that investment, so to speak, that I'm paying forward into the world as a idea. But anybody who's busy in a relationship with a significant other, or children, or in a workplace, or trying to make a living knows that A doesn't always result in B. It's not a laboratory, it's not a petri dish. The algorithm of this world is I put effort in, I try, and then there's a Metzia, Pitom, in an unexpected way, something falls in my lap. That result of success or accomplishment or achievement is not necessarily in the final destination that we intended in the beginning. It's coming from a place that we never might have expected. So it means to live life Baderech, in process. It's open to the road. It's interesting. Rabbi Nachman has a very beautiful story, a very simple mind. Rabbi Nachman explains this as follows. The person, we get somewhere trying to, like, what's the goal of everything we're doing? The goal of coming to shul. The purpose in coming to a shiur. Now, for some people, it's nostalgia. Hey, we were in shiur together. Lots of us slept together in the night. Some of us played ball together in 1991. Some of us went to a Met game yet in the 80s together. All the time. Some of us, I don't know, are friends of my parents. Some people said, oh, there's a shiur about, like, I don't know, just do something here to get things moving before Yom Noraim. Some of us, I don't know, for one reason or another, everybody comes for their own, whatever that initial reason is. But beneath any movement or any effort in anything to do with anything real is one underlying yesod. Rabbi Nachman says called chibur. We want to feel connected to Hashem, to others, feel our place in the world. We want to be mitchaber. We want some type of a connection, to feel something, to people, to something spiritual, to some idea. I want to understand it more. I want to mitchaber. Imagine going somewhere and trying to pick up reception on a phone, like the Verizon thing. Trying to pick up a signal. In order for a signal to come in order to receive the signal, it has to be open. The Wi-Fi has to be open. And the Wi-Fi channel has to be open. And if it's open, you can pick up a signal. And the signal that you pick up on the road is different than the signal when you go into the mall. When you go into Starbucks, there's a different signal there. You have to put your information. You go to the airport, you get the Boingo signal, it's a different signal. There's a constant changing broadcast that's coming from us. That with this vessel, this kli, we're trying to connect, and it's no different in our personal lives. Every stage of life, there's a different signal we're trying to pick up. There's a different network. There's passwords for that network. Some of them are free and open, accessible to all. And you can either download or not download. Other ones, the bandwidth is totally different. You need some type of password. But living life in a way of trying to understand the Torah and God's intention in the world. Of recognizing that our goal in trying to integrate a Torah thought or some notion about God into our lives requires first and foremost to be open to the ever-changing frequency that we pick up along the road at different stops. Every rest stop has a different. They might look similar, but they're different. Driving from here to 17 upstate, there are like 3 or 4 gas stations that have cholesterol milk. And Klein's ice cream bars, cholesterol ice cream bars. You have to know which ones in each place. If you want ice cream, or there's one that has soy milk. Nobody's serving oat milk yet at the gas stations, but there's one that has soy milk. So if you're flashiks and you want to get a coffee in one of these places, you have to know that like which one is which. It's just about knowing where the nekudas hachibur is. Rabbi Nachman calls hanakuda sheshayach libo be'eis hazos. The secret of Teshuva, Rabbi Nachman says, is to connect to the point hanakuda sheshayach libo. There's a point that relates to my heart be'eis hazos at that moment. And what's happening in Shu and works right now might not have been yesterday. Or even better yet, the stage of life that I'm in right now, there's a different language than when I was Shana Aleph. Than my gap. Maybe it's different than the time like before I was married or before I was in a relationship. Now I'm in a serious relationship. I'm committed to a person, and the way of connecting to the Ribono Shel Olam, to my traditions, to my culture, to my family, to my davening is different than it was when I was single. It's a different thing. Or the opposite is true. After experiencing love or experiencing loss, the market's up. There's one way of connecting. The market's down. There's another feeling. There's another frequency that's coming. Living life Baderech, living life open means that I'm looking to connect to that frequency that's authentic, that's real, to what's taking place in my life right now. That's what Hillel Perichor said. The Good Tzemach Tzedek was right yesterday. Embarked on the journey with the intention of going to the Rebbe to spend Shabbos in Lubavitch before Yom Tov, so I wanted to draw from him. I wake up in the morning and I lock in the davening and things are going right. I'm like things I have full. I got the hot hand. You have the hot hand, just keep feeding it to him. Because he's got the hot hand. Go, I'm right here. Why should I go anywhere? Right now it's working. Because Hanekuda Sheshayach Libo Be'eis Hazos was there, Babroisk in the side of the road. I had some intention, like when I was dating, of what it's going to look like. I had some intention before kids, this is what I want them to look like. And then life happens. When I started this job, I took this graduate degree, this is what it was going to be like, and then life happens. And there's twists and turns and ups and downs. You get a flat tire and the car breaks down along the path. And being a Jew who's in motion, being open to the reality of the road means to know that Hashem is with me in that place too. And to know what the moment is calling for. The Gaivid of Yerushalayim. You heard the Gaivid of Yerushalayim? The Gaon Av based in Yerushalayim, of the Erech HaRedis in Yerushalayim. The Yitzchak Tovia Weiss. Elderly Yid. I met him a couple years ago, in Yerushalayim. It was very cool. very beautiful person. Baderech Haredis, now Cook's time is over. Baderech Haredis is like I don't know. It's like the most, let's say, extreme manifestation of any social, cultural, or religious organized group in the world today. That are part of a Jewish consensus. Right? Baderech Haredis is as old school and hardcore as they come. And this to be wise is the goal of basing of Baderech Haredis. He happens to have a partner. They two starting quarterbacks. The other is, anybody know? Say, Moshe Sternbach. Moshe Sternbach is the Rabbi, the Rosh Abbas, going up is the Rosh Abbas. Also a very special Jew, big Talmud Chacham, a big posek in the world. Anyways, when Mischel Weiss was a young man, he was phenomenal going, incredible memory, very, very sharp, very bright. Before his bar mitzvah, he was 12 years old. It was fall 1939. Germans invaded Poland, cut right through Poland, not much resistance, and set the world into panic, set the Jewish community into total panic. Not like it was a chid, like a new thing. Jews have faced challenges over the years and not known exactly what to do. There's no real playbook for this. The final solution wasn't yet, that wasn't language. But like there was in the air, there was something like we saw that this wasn't going to be good for the year. Like that already Jews knew. But there was a real uncertainty about what to do. He grew up in a shtetl outside of Pressburg, 50 kilometers from Pressburg. Pending at that time it was Slovakia. And there was like this general feeling of uncertainty and chaos and stress, pressure, didn't know what to do. So the Rabbanim of that shtetl, the Rav of that shtetl, sent little Yitzchak Tovia, the young boy before bar mitzvah. He was a capable guy, sharp, he knew how to cook you, sent him to Pressburg to find out what are they doing in the big city. Pressburg was the city of Sofer. It was an urban Israel. Had real strong rabbinic leadership. So to find out what are the Jews doing? How are we going to handle this when the Germans come from Slovakia? Do we flee and just try to roll to the next place, pivot to the next city, the next country, the next town? If they close the border, what are we going to do? Is there going to be some system here with visas and fake passports? What are we going to do? Are we going to just say, hey, we're here, we're loyal citizens of them, now we're going to be loyal citizens, we put us to work, we'll be part of it, they just didn't know what to do. Auschwitz, there was none of that language yet. It was okay, these are going, Shiba Malchus, okay, I'll be loyal to your people, whatever you want, tell us. Or do we resist? There was a voice saying, no, we have resistance here, and push back and say, do we join the Slovakian resistance and pick up arms and fight with our... They didn't know what to do. It's not like it was a new thing in Jewish history. It's just it was a long time ago in the Korban Beis HaMikdash. We didn't know what to do then either. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai level, not knowing. Take a doctor for the Cong, Yavne v'Chachamea, but he wasn't sure. It's okay, we could say it, because we're not talking about Gedol, we're talking about Yochanan ben Zakkai. It's a couple thousand years ago, so we have some space that's a little more comfortable for us, but he didn't know what to do. Until the end of his life, on his deathbed, he's looking at it and saying, okay, am I going to heaven or am I going this way? There's two paths in front of me. I'm not sure if I made the right call. Jewish history has proven he made the right call. Saved the Masorah, saved Klal Yisrael, and still wasn't so sure. Rabbi Akiva also, by the way, I don't want to open up a theological can of worms about the rabbinic decisions during the Holocaust, but I don't know, Rabbi Akiva didn't know what to do either. He backed Bar Kokhba. That didn't end up good. A lot of people died. Bar Koziva, Rabbi Akiva went all in on that. It's okay, we don't know what to do. We're uncertain. This whole thing is in process. The whole thing is in process. They didn't know what to do. So they sent this Yitzchak Tobi Weiss as a young boy, as a bacher, as a 12-year-old, to Pressburg to find out what do the Rabbanim in Pressburg say to do. He gets to Pressburg, he snuck, went through, he traveled. And the answer was the Rabbanim didn't know what to do. This Rav said this, this Rav said that. No one had any clear vision of what to do in the face of the German invasion in 1939, fall 39. So he was at the Rosh HaKahal, the head of the Jewish community. And he said, I have to go back with something. The Rosh HaKahal said, we don't know. But since you're here, I have to tell you, yesterday, we got a telegram from London to Preston, that the UK-based International Aid Committee for Children is sponsoring an emergency transport to save children, kinder transport, called kinder transport. An emergency transport, and there's 1,000 visas, 1,000 tickets, 1,000 passes. And we have 500 passes of the 1,000 for this region. And we have not like, and they're trying to make diunim how to like which children to send. Imagine which children to send. So the Rosh Hakal said, we don't know what to do. But since you're here, Hashgacha Pratis must have it, that you should be one of those children. They gave him a ticket. They sent him on his way. Little boy goes home to his parents. His parents said, you have to go. He had siblings there, parents there. Didn't even have to fill in yet. Mother and father packed him up, and a few days later, he's on his way on a kinder transport across the border to get to London. Gets to London with about 1,000 kids, 1,000 children, 999 other children. Gets to London, and they were adopted by the Jewish community. I remember this in high school, and in like 8th grade, 9th grade, when Jews from Russia came to Muncie, came to our community. So like there was like a few families adopted family. Parents, another couple families rented a house on what's called on Morshey Road, and collecting furniture and clothing, and like took care of this family. That's what it was. There were families adopted from families in London, Stamford Hill, adopted these children, took responsibility for them, and they had like a group home, some type of orphanage. And this little boy, Yitzchak Tovia, went to go learn in Schneider's Yeshiva, Thomas Moshe Yeshiva in Stamford Hill, with another little boy named Moshe Sternbach. Right? They both were learning there at the same time, 2 refugee children, living orphans for all intents and purposes, like they didn't have real contact with their parents. And who knew what was going to be? The border was closed, and that was it in wartime. And they learned in yeshiva, and they had this life. Anyways, at a certain point, a few months in, or a couple months later, they had like, anybody who works in any organizational Jewish life knows, what do? Do a really nice chesed, a beautiful thing. Yeah, you make a big event out of it, and you make a big photo op out of it. So they got all the children together, and they gathered them together on the main road, and they put them in these little sailor suits, in these little like British boy, sailor suits. They cleaned them up, and they lined them up on the road because King George was going to come through. Now, King George, everybody knows, Queen Elizabeth's father, the Queen's father, and King's Speech. You want to say? Phenomenal. King's Speech. So okay. I understand. I'm just going to see where we're up to here. King's Speech. He's a person who was a human. He was a vulnerable person. He was open. As a person who was like a mensch of a person. He was caring and sincere. I don't know what he did enough, not enough. Jews know how to, I don't know. But he was a person. Like there was something there. He was a mensch. And King George was going to come through, and they're going to have his whole photo op. Him coming through on his magazine or whatever it was, well done. And the kids stood on either end of the road, and they're all kind of like, they sang the song, the British song, whatever, the anthem, and God bless the king, and did a whole thing. They clapped as he's coming by. And these security guards walking along, and he's going very slowly, smiling, and everybody taking pictures, and here are the children that they saved so benevolently from war, whatever. They came to England, and England's rehabilitating them, providing them with shelter, a real thing, a beautiful thing. The beautiful brochure spread. And Yitzchak Tovia described this a few years ago at a Suda, at a Siyum. As the king is going by in his car, really slowly for people to see what's happening, one of the children lined up there just has this moment, and he jumped the line, and he darts into the middle of the road. The security guards kind of lunge toward him, and he screams, "King, king, king!" And King George looks at him. The guards kind of grab him, and it's like a whole hullabaloo, and the king says, "It's okay, just let him, let everything okay." And he says, Thank you for saving me. Thank you for saving us. But please, my parents, I have a sister, I have a brother. Please, thank you for saving me, but I have a whole family that's left. Could you, he's like trying to could you save them too? And the king kind of was taken aback. He's like, well, he goes, you're the king, you can do anything. there's this wild moment, and they kind of, the teachers pull him back, and like imagine the aid workers, it's a whole to do, and the king kind of continues on. But he was a fleischiger heart, this king, King George, the king's speech. Maybe because his own, who knows, he sent one of his people to go find out the details of that boy. And 2 weeks later, this kid's parents and sister and brother were brought to London. Oh. These are days that we're saying over and over again. Mizmor Zion. David Hashem Ori, we're trying to get ourselves like into this zone. We're focused on like what it means. What's my moment? There's one thing I'm asking. This is what I'm asking. It's a time period that nowadays it's not even like a Labab singing. We talk about Hamelech Asadeh. The singing that in Har Tzion, Rav Lichtenstein used to lead the singing of Hamelech Asadeh. The imagery of the Balatanya that the king, Melech, who was Yoshev al Kisei Din or Rachanim, who's sitting in his throne, which metaphorically expresses the truth that the king, God, is inaccessible. The only way to get there is like some access point of protectio or whatever. And we have to do something to allow, to earn entry into the king's palace, to be able to come before him. Throughout the year, that's the mentality. For certain on Rosh Hashanah, for certain on Yom Kippur, the high holidays, there's a formality, there's a bureaucracy, there's a malchus. It called the coronatio, the day of coronation, where we as subjects are looking toward the king in his place. El Melech Yoshev, God is sitting on his kisei, on his throne, in his place, and I'm trying from my place to reach his place. But during Elul, the Balatani describes it as Hamelech, the king is Basadeh, in the field, which means king is in transit, he's Baderech. The king is coming out of his place. When the king comes out of his place, there's an accessibility, there's an openness, there's a way of communicating, of reaching the king, getting in front of the king in a different way than the rest of the year. I remember like the first presidential election, I remember really thinking about and like reading about and interested in was when Clinton was the nominee. Now, I didn't know politics, not politics. I just remember seeing like pictures on TV of this guy, this Bubba, in Arkansas or Alabama or Tennessee, going to McDonald's. There was a point where the president was like a thing to be president, where there was Cong. There was some chashivas to it. There was time. I'm not interested in politics. I don't get all the same thing. I'm a one issue voter. I don't care about one. Okay, I really don't care. But there was a time where there was like a thing. And it was like I remember like hearing or people talking about or seeing imagery that like him going to like McDonald's after McDonald's after McDonald's, not just because he liked burgers and shakes and fries and eating like a chazer in public and then taking his French fries and walking outside the store and going to the crowd and offering people French fries. I remember seeing that, right? I remember seeing like, this, I'm like, whoa, like imagine the accessibility, the connectivity of that moment, of that experience. When I think of Hamelech Basadeh, it's not about him. There's an accessibility, there's like an openness. And during these days, it's appropriate to be focused on that, meaning that's the signal of the road. The king is in the field, like it's happening around us. There's an openness. One thing I ask of God, I mean, what's my ask? When I'm in front of the king, what's my ask? For sure, I'm asking for health. For sure, I'm asking for my friends. For sure, I'm asking for this parnasa and this shit and this to cure hunger. And there shouldn't be people suffering here. And this boy should be returned to his family safe. And I have a million things I'm asking. But what's the one thing? Like, what's the one thing I'm asking? What's the one thing is shalom. I want to be connected. I want to lock in. I want life. I want my life to be full and meaningful and healthy and happy and engaged and real. And for that, like I want family and friends and success and goodness. Like if I want that. What's our ask? When Rabbi Yitzchak told us Ma'aseh at a scene, when he told the story, he was young, he said, it haunts him. So there were 999 other kids lined up who didn't make that move, who didn't throw themselves in front of the king's car and appeal to his rachman. He was there, going really slowly. And everyone was clapping, and he was waving, and everyone saying, thank you, yay, king, just ask. What's our ask? And his siblings and his parents were killed in the war, as were all the other parents and siblings of every other one of the 999 Jewish children on that lineup, except for the one kid who had guts, chutzpah, courage, tmimos, who knows what, and stepped up and asked. He made the ask. What's our ask? Like, what are we asking, and what are we waiting for? It's like we have this notion of like, okay, we're going to prepare for the high holidays, because when we get there, like, when we get there, like right now, Svardim are saying this, okay, but like, oh, we have a couple more weeks. We have the Kumzitz for Slichos. That's when I'm going to like that. It'll start then, and then in Rosh Hashanah. Look, the Rosh Hashanah, of course, Rosh Hashanah. I'm going to get Machzor out. I'll get going then. Okay, then we have to make sure that it starts. Whatever. Okay, that's when things are going to happen. Yom Kippur, of course, it's going to happen then. Like when I get to the Tzemach Tzedek and Lubavitch for Shabbos, then it's going to activate, as opposed to like be open to the reality of the road of what's happening right now. The Wi-Fi signal that's coming out now is just get out in front of the king and say it. Without embarrassment, without fear, without being self-conscious. Just say it. The whole beauty, the whole Anila Dodi V'Dodi Li relationship, love, trust, connectivity of the month is to support us and bring us to a place where we say, I want to be with you. I want life. I want to be in the world. I want a good life. I want a happy life, a healthy life, a meaningful life. We don't have to wait until Like, I don't have to wait. And Elul as a time of preparation almost undermines the fact that Elul is actually a time also for being with it, for it happening now. It's not like, oh, I got to set the alarm. I got to set my alarm for a couple of weeks from now so that I can tap in and get into the Yom Nirayim. It's not, it's what's happening right now. There was one kid who realized the opportunity. When we think about the opportunity of this month of Teshuva, this time of Teshuva, the Chavano Mata Frank or Mata, get some nods here. Can I get a yeah? Can I get a yes? Mata Frank? Okay. Mata Frank. Okay, Jacob Berman knows Mata Frank. Okay, what else we can? Huh? Have a Ramelech Biederman, people. Huh? Who's reading Ramelech these days? Everybody. Ramata Frank. No? Yes? Ramata Frank is probably the coolest guy you never met. For sure. If you would have dropped him in any high school, you would have dropped him in Frisch, you would have dropped him in DRS, dropped him in Shayashiv, he's the coolest guy in any room. He's the coolest guy in any room. Old school Chassidish Yid from Meir Sharon. His father, his grandfather from the old Yishuv Hayashim. His father was like the Chassidish Moil in Meir Sharon. And Ramata Frank is just the most confident and comfortable guy because he's not trying to be anything. This is what he is. And he just goes everywhere, anywhere. I invited him to come to ask years ago, can't pass. And I started saying, like, again, Meir Sharon. I was saying, like, Khaled, a lot of people with special needs, individualized needs, like it's a pretty wild environment, there's a lot happening, just to know coming in. And he goes, Yeshu Din Shama, like there's Jews there? I said, yeah, a lot. He goes, great. Like, great. That's the whole thing. There's people there, I'm there. He goes anywhere and circulates in every circle. Anyways, he has a big Shabbos table. Every week, you got dozens and dozens of people from all walks of life right in the middle of Meir Sharon. And it goes all night. And he davens nates, and then it's what? He's got a porch out there, a hookah porch outside of his, like a Meir Sharon. He gets. The Ramata was sitting by a Shabbos table. Ramata was sitting by a Shabbos table, and late Friday night, and a young Avrech guy comes in with a beer and a hat, comes in and sits down and is like looking at him, smiling. Ramata kind of looks at him and like says, Shabbos, Ramata, Shabbos. You look familiar. He said, "You remember me?" He said, There's not that. There's not. I asked you the question. The question. A lot of people ask me questions. What do you? Listen, he goes. He tells him his name from Williamsburg, from Villapest. He looks at him. He goes, she goes like this. This boy grew up in a Hasidic home, in Williamsburg. I have to say the name of Hasidus, but you can figure it out. It's not correct. He grew up in Williamsburg, and it got too much. He went through what he went through, and his journey was somewhat circuitous. And he and a couple of friends kind of like tested sowed their oats and tested the waters. And Shabbos afternoon, when their fathers would go, the father would go to Shal Shuddis. When he goes to the Shal Shuddis matzav, they'd be singing, the Torah, and whatever. So he would sneak out with a couple of his friends, get in the car, and go to the edge of Williamsburg to a lobster restaurant and sit there on Shabbos, Shal Shuddis time, end of Shabbos, and eat a tray for restaurant. And they would go and they'd have whatever, the crab and the shellfish, and I don't know. I always ask this question on dates, like if you had a 1 day pass for any, like do any Avera, what would you do? I saw it wasn't a good bit. Wheeled it back and changed it to like I wheeled it back. And I'm like, where would you go? Like I don't know, that's the only thing. I'm like, where would you go? What restaurant? What would you eat? You're not kosher, Pizza, Little Caesars, this place, McDonald's. I was curious. No, Rogers, whatever. Mine was always Sizzler, kosher, because you can get surf and turf. You can get proper steak, and also I always wanted to have fish guy like but what can I do? Hashem says not what we do. It says not what we do. But I don't know. I'm always interested. I was like, especially ShopRite as a kid, like watching the lobsters and the thing. So this nice to resonate with me. This guy went to go eat lobster. He's sitting there Shabbos afternoon, and these Hasidic guys together, all upside down. I mean, they're wearing baseball hats, but like, you know what I'm saying? Chase Stadium, like sitting there in the Trafer restaurant eating lobster, cracking lobster, eating lobster. Shal Shuddis time, and he's like, sometimes they would like, they knew Skino Sudasa, and they'd like, that's what they knew. It was like such a confused situation. They'd sing a B'nai Chala and like with their and like joke about it and whatever. But they'd sit there, and this boy sat there and like he would enjoy it. He loved lobster, so good. Schmack lobster. There's a thing to eat fish by the Sudas of Shabbos, especially by Shal Shuddis. What are you gonna do? Take a kid out of Williamsburg, but etc. He's sitting there in the restaurant, and he said, and he says, "This is the most schmack thing I've ever eaten in my life. The sauce it's tender inside, it's crunchy on the outside. It's like I feel like I just want to make a bracha on this. Like this, on this, you should make a bracha." The guy said, "It's making a bracha on it." We talked about it. So you can't make a bracha on this. He goes, "But why not? Hashem made it. Shakol niyam devaro. Like Hashem made it. So like why can't?" So they went to ask, he said, I came to ask her Mata Frank. He came to ask Mata. Mata was schlepping around. He didn't go to schlepping. Mata comes to New York a lot. He goes to Monroe, he goes to Ramon and Ehrman. That's his zone, that's his space. And this kid came to meet with Mata. He was sitting with him late. And on the second night of Rosh Hashanah, thousands of Chevra are with Ramata to all hours of the night singing by the Tzion. Bless everyone to be able to see them. And it's unbelievable. He's just so open, so connected. This kid came to Ramata and asked the question: am I allowed to make a bracha shahako? Is it appropriate to make a bracha shahako on lobster Shabbos afternoon at the restaurant? A crazy question. But Ramata took him seriously. He said, I understand you. I understand it's probably very tasty. And you want to give credit to Hashem who made the tasty lobster. I mean, Hashem who made it. Comes from the Rebbe, comes from the Rebbe, make a bracha. But the thing is, there's a category that the Gemara calls a person who makes a bracha on machalas asura, something which is forbidden to eat, which is a very specific category called mena'etz. It's a certain rebelliousness, like I don't know how you say it, shtuch. It's like sticking it in your mouth. Like it's, think about it. Yom Narayim, like it's slichas time, slichas season, SZN, slichas season. Everybody's busting out their old art scroll slichos, getting ready to like, getting galachas. You go through that whole list. They're like, okay, I'm not a murderer.